Hello everybody and welcome back to Everything Created. If you clicked on this video because you always kill your plants, you're in the right place. Today I'm going to be talking about watering, specifically only watering today. If you are new here, please subscribe and click the bell icon and you'll get notified every time I make a video, so that way you can see the rest of the videos in the series. This will be probably one of the most in-depth plant guide series out there. However, I am going to preface, everything has its exceptions, and there are going to be exceptions to almost every one of these things I say. Plants are so diverse, plants are so huge as a family, so it is so hard to say, do this and it applies to all of them. But with this video, I will get you pretty accurate care guides for most of your common houseplants, like the aroids and a lot of the ferns. I mean, obviously there are extremes I could go to with talking about how different all plants are. Like, these are aquatic plants that live underwater their entire life. Obviously, if you water your house plants that much, they're gonna die. So there's a lot of misinformation out there about watering, and not all of it is misinformation per se, but a lot of it is well-intended ignorance, I will say. So you'll hear a lot of things like, if you water your plant too much one time, like if you literally give them too high of an amount of water once, they're gonna die because they'll drown. That's not true. That is not true at all. Plants do not drown, they rot. So if there's water sitting on their roots, a lot of water sitting on their roots, there's no air access to the soil, water basically chokes out the gas exchange of air through the soil and makes the soil become anaerobic, which is air-free basically, and it will rot, and that overtakes your roots and your plant will die. By the way, if you prefer to read, I have a blog post about this very topic, and I'm doing the same series, and I'm already a step ahead on the blog. Actually, I've already covered water in one blog and I've covered soil in the next. So if you prefer to read a blog, my blog is everythingcreatedorg.wordpress.com. But if you want to just go to my description in this video, my website as well as my blog site will be listed there. So first things first, if you have a houseplant that has yellowing leaves right now, it doesn't look good, it looks like it's declining, don't give up on it. There's still hope. Of course you can fix it. So the first thing I want to talk about is stop watering them so much. I mean, that is a big mistake that a lot of plant owners make, especially when they're new at it. They're like, oh, I just got this new plant, it doesn't look very good, I'm gonna water it. And then, oh, it still doesn't look very good, I'm gonna water it again. Oh, it's looking even worse, I'm just gonna try to water it one more time. And then they end up drenching the plant and the roots become anaerobic and they rot, and then the plant dies. Most plants are very well equipped to take a large water, such as a rain, and then they dry out for a while. Like, they don't get constant water. They might not get water for a couple of weeks. A lot of my houseplants go weeks or months without water and they're still thriving. So the best thing to do today is just relax. Keeping plants is not meant to be stressful. They are not meant to bring a huge, difficult, gruesome burden into your life. They're meant to be looked at and enjoyed and not bring you stress. So if they're bringing you stress, maybe just relax, take a step back, and then, look at this from a different lens. So here's a small plumeria tree. They make really pretty flowers whenever they get mature, and they make pretty decent houseplants. But I bought this like 2 months ago. I have not watered it, but you can tell it's a little bit droopy. It looks sad. It doesn't look like these leaves should be sticking straight out. So I'm not gonna stress. It's fine. It's not dying. I'm just gonna water it. I mean, it's a little bit crooked, but anyway. It's not that the plant is actually drinking the water per se, but the soil is pulling the water up towards the plant's roots through capillary action. So real quickly, I'm gonna kind of just brush over succulents, because succulents are very different in care from most other houseplants. I mean, at least they're mostly pretty different from other houseplants. So I'm just going to brush over those real quick, just in case anyone out there does have a succulent and they need some help with it. Stop watering it. Stop it. Just don't. Do not water it, ever. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. You can water it sometimes, but I will give you an example. I had a bowl of very sandy soil that I had a multiple succulents planted in, like it was a little arrangement type thing. And I would water it about maybe twice per year. Per year. I mean, like, it just never needed it. And I mean, they were under strong LED lighting, but I didn't have them like in a window. Most succulents can handle full sunlight, so if you have a window that gets like really bright sunlight blasting in, they can probably handle that just fine. And I would say don't water them until the bottom of the leaves looks a little bit wrinkly and the soil is bone dry, because succulents are very, very prone to root rot if the soil stays moist for too long. By this point, the plant has already absorbed, well, the soil, not the plant, but the soil has already absorbed enough water that it's no longer floating, so the plant can actually stand upright, and hopefully we can start to watch these leaves make notice of how low they're hanging right now, and I bet they'll be kind of out here somewhere by the end of the video. So this video series will be the same as my blog series is online. It's going to cover the basics of watering, potting, soil, light, and fertilizer, and I have to have a script because I can't remember those things in that order for some reason. But I'm going to start with water, the next one will be potting and soil, and then so on. So simply understanding the fact that plants don't drown from being in water for too long changes everything about how you care for your plants. You could take a healthy plant, I mean, don't try it, but you probably could. Take a healthy plant that's dry and wrap it up to an anchor, toss it out in a pond for 24 hours, pull it out of the pond, and then shake off the extra water, and it's going to be just fine, chances are, unless fish like eat the leaves. But you get what I'm saying. The point is that it's not a matter of being underwater that kills them. They don't drown per se like an animal would or like a person would. They experience rot due to the anaerobic environment. So you might be wondering right now, how do I know if I'm watering my plant too much or if I'm watering it not enough? So yellowing leaves is generally a good sign of moisture stress. I mean, a bad sign, but a clear sign of moisture stress. And so that means either you're watering too much or you're watering not enough. The occasional yellow leaf is nothing to worry about. Every plant sheds leaves as they grow. It's very normal. But if you're getting a lot of yellow leaves at once, that they're just all of a sudden all these yellow leaves are coming up and you're like, where are these coming from? It's because something is wrong. So there are two basic things to check for to give yourself kind of an idea of whether or not you're overwatering or you're underwatering. First of all, how often do you water? If you're watering about once a week, chances are you're overwatering. You know, if your plant is turning yellow, check for drainage holes. Make sure your pot has drainage holes so that extra water is actually leaving the plant and not just staying in the bottom. Because if you don't have drainage holes, it is very hard to gauge how much water is staying down there at the bottom of your plant. The top could be drying out and the bottom could be completely rotten. So first thing, make sure your pot has drainage holes. Make sure that the water is actually leaving the plant. This is not a good example. It might be a good example. Hang on. If you want to check whether or not your plant might have root rot or might be staying too wet, gently grab and lift out of the soil and then give it a sniff. This smells like really fresh and clean, like dirt you would find outside. It just smells like normal dirt. And it's dry at the bottom too. So that is a really good sign that this plant is clearly not overwatered. Everything smells good. There's no signs of rot. And I mean, look, it looks pretty happy. I mean, it doesn't have a ton of leaves and it's kind of growing a little weird here, but it's an alocasia. They do that. So anyway. And then another thing to watch out for is many people will feel like their plant seems too dry, but they are watering it. And so that kind of makes a trickier situation. So the first thing I would tell you to check for, if that's you, if you feel like you need to water your plant more and somehow it's still staying dry even after you water it, this is something I call waterproof dirt. And I've heard other people use more correct terminology, like your soil gets so dry and compacted that it becomes hydrophobic, but I prefer waterproof dirt. So anyway, here's an example of a plant that has very compacted soil and the dirt is probably waterproof. I don't know that as I haven't actually watered this plant in a long time. But this is an exception, by the way, because this is a bromeliad. They need water to stay in this little bowl right here. You don't actually water the dirt. I mean, you can, but anyways, I'm gonna try to pull it out. So it's quite root bound looking, but it doesn't feed through the roots. These roots are only there to anchor. So I had to move. I have no idea how well you'll be able to see this, but I'm gonna try to pour some water on this soil and just watch what happens. Did you see that? It immediately rolled right off the soil and onto the floor through the pot. So that is a good sign that this soil has been so dry and so compact for so long that it can't take water anymore. So anyway, the solution to that is to do what I'm doing for this plant, is to bottom water it. And so that will let the water slowly absorb into that waterproof dirt until it actually can penetrate all the way through it, and that makes it softer. Now, once it does get wet like it's supposed to, I would suggest going ahead and breaking that soil up, because plant roots will do better if they can breathe a little bit. Break that soil up or repot the plant into different soil that won't compact so bad. We'll talk about soil compacting in the next video. So earlier I mentioned making sure you have drainage holes in the bottom of your pots. However, you don't have to necessarily. The reason I strongly suggest that you do is if you're watching this video, good chance you probably aren't super experienced. And of course, that's a wonderful thing to be early and new in the plant hobby. But if you are trying to grow a plant with no drainage holes, it takes quite the eye for plants, and it takes a lot of knowledge and experience to be able to pull it off. You can totally do it, but it takes more work. So there are two main ways to water plants, and you can also kind of do a combination of them. The most common is the one that everyone does pretty much, is just take a cup or glass or pitcher, whatever, or a watering can, and just spray it all over the top of the soil. I mean, you can just drench them really good. Whatever you do, however you water, the main thing is that you like saturate your plant. You want to get it very wet. You want to really get a lot of water in there, but then you want to let all of the excess water go away, like this. Don't leave this like this. Once this water level stops going down and the plant is watered, dump this tray out, so that way it's not going to be sitting there in that little pool of water and rot. So this is an example of bottom watering. This is really popular for a lot of people, especially people who have a lot of plants. They will have multiple containers of water, or, I mean, there's a million ways to do it. Some people will submerge their entire plant in a bucket of water and just let it bubble till it stops bubbling, and then they pull it out, drain off the extra, and then set it back on the shelf. That's perfectly fine. I don't personally do that, but there's nothing wrong with that at all. I like having deep trays under my plants like this, because I often do just like pour water in the top of the plant, and I almost always do too much, especially for this plant, because it likes a lot of water, but I always pour way too much in the top of it, so it ends up filling up down here, and then I'm afraid it's going to spill over. So I like trays under my plants. Always keep a tray under your plant unless you want water in your floor. But bottom watering plants has a few advantages over the traditional top watering where you just pour water right in. I like it because it encourages the plant to send down deeper roots, because the water is always coming up from the bottom. So like in nature, if plants are near a source of underground water, they can detect it through humidity and water wicking up through the soil. They send down deeper and stronger roots. If the plant has more roots, it helps the plant better utilize what soil is there for nutrition and watering. Also, fungus gnats are a pest that all houseplant people will have to deal with at some point or another. As some people say that bottom watering helps with fungus gnats, they're going to be in every plant no matter what, so it doesn't matter. And this method is also better if you have plants that are root bound or the soil is compacted and you don't feel like repotting them right now. Bottom watering is way better. You can just set them in there and they will eventually soak it up. It may take a while, but they will eventually soak it up. And then you can pull them out, shake off the excess, and then set them back on the shelf. So like I said earlier, some plants can go months without water. I mean, especially if you have a larger pot, the plants can go forever without water. It's shocking. So I don't like schedules when people are like, oh, I water once a week, or I water once every 2 weeks, or I water once a month. I just don't like schedules. Sometimes plants need more or less than what your schedule might allow. And some people can make schedules work, especially if they have a lot of plants. Maybe they can find a way to make it happen. But for me personally, it's just never worked. I've never been able to do it. I feel like the best way is to just watch your plants, watch for signs of drooping. ferns typically turn pale when they need a drink. Most other plants will droop, like visibly. This one is quite visibly drooping. I mean, it looks just sad. It may not perk up by the end of this video after all, but it will perk up eventually. So I think the last thing I need to mention in this video is what they call crown rot. And crown rot occurs when water sits in the crown of a plant. So it's a plant. Crown rot occurs whenever water sits in the crown of a plant that produces a crown. Not all plants produce a crown, but what does that even mean? People are not going to know what that means. So plants that grow from a central point, like a pineapple plant. If you've ever seen a pineapple plant, it's more common. So plants that grow all of their leaves from a central point typically are more likely to get crown rot. They're kind of susceptible to it. And I'm going to show this one as an example. This spot right here, all the way down in the center, is what's called the crown. And so the reason that is susceptible to rot is because all those leaves together kind of hold water right in the middle, and that allows bacteria to grow and actually can rot your plant. Crown rot is very dangerous for plants that get it because all of the leaves come from one spot, and if that one spot dies, the whole plant dies. So it is dangerous. However, a lot of people will tell you, oh, if your plant has a crown, do not water it there, like water the roots. Don't let water ever touch the center of your plant. And that is a load of baloney. Sorry, I get too passionate about these things. So plants grow in nature, outside. They get rained on. They have water hitting their crown all the time. The difference is, out there, they have a good chance to dry out in between rains, or there's lots of sunshine and airflow to prevent bacteria from growing. So in your home, if you have a bird nest fern like this one, you only water it when the leaves are a little bit pale. See right now, I know what it looks like normally. For those of you who don't have one, you may not know this is not how it normally looks. And normally the leaves are a little bit darker green. I can tell this one needs water. So I'm letting it dry out very well between waterings, so I can water that crown every time I water it, and it's not gonna rot. So in recap, we know that water is super important for every single plant on Earth. They all have to have it. There are no exceptions. That's why I'm doing video on watering first, is because this is the biggest plant killer. So many plants can even be grown directly in nothing but water. I mean, you have to add nutrients and stuff occasionally, but I mean, this one is doing great, and it's even flowering. I'm trying to find an open flower. They're all closed. Oh well. This is just in a little vase, and thrive that way too. So water is the most important thing for plants. So if you get your watering right, chances are your plant is going to live. But don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, comment down below if you have any questions, anything I missed. I'd be glad to answer questions in the comments. And when you subscribe, be sure you hit the bell icon too, because a lot of people don't get notified about my videos when they come out. So be sure to click the subscribe button and then click the bell icon too. All my socials and everything are down below in the description, so feel free to check those out. And I'll have timestamps down there too.